One, two, three, boom! Welcome everybody to Mom and Dad Talks, where our favorite two people are Mom and Dad, and someone has taken them out to eat today. However, we got a very special guest, famous comedian Cornbread. I am excited to have him on here. I mean, he's a man after my own heart. I mean, first of all, a person named Cornbread. Hey, we got something that, but there's so many facets to him, and I don't know where to start, but let's start off with this, sir. First of all, how do you get into comedy, or how do you get into Cornbread? Tell me which one came first. Explain that.
All right, the comedy came first, and here's how it happened. Mm-hmm. I was working for VDOT, and that's Virginia Department of Transportation. And they were wanting to have an inspectors conference for all the construction inspectors down Virginia Beach, and the planners wanted to have a comedian. Well, the higher up said, you can't have a comedian, but we know this guy and that's really funny, but you have to call him a motivational speaker. And so what I found out was that, of course, people like comedy better than they do motivational speaking. Okay. So what I wound up doing is telling a whole lot of jokes and a little bit of motivation. And so pretty soon after that first time, that was back in 99.
Wow.
Pretty soon across the state, I was doing all the inspector conferences, the superintendent's conferences, the secretary conferences, then retirement parties and all kinds of different things. And so they invited me to go up and fill in for a manager up around the DC area. Mm-hmm. And this manager was heading up the negotiations to put hot lanes around the Beltway on 495. And so while I was up there, I found out that you could actually take stand-up comedy classes at the DC Improv on Sunday afternoons.
Oh, okay.
So I signed up for 6 weeks of stand-up classes, and we did a graduation show. And the guy that was teaching, he's a headliner out in Vegas now, named Matt Kazam. And so Matt had me headline the graduation show. So then I signed up for another 4-week class on joke writing, and we met on Tuesday nights, and for 3 hours every Tuesday night we wrote jokes. So after all that, Matt approached me and he said, you're really funny and you could be a full-time comedian, but just so you understand, before people will buy a ticket for what you're doing, you need to do 150 to 200 shows.
Wow.
Yes, he said it takes that much practice to get your timing where hecklers never rattle you, and that your timing and your joke writing and how tight you build your set, that people are going to pay money out of their pocket and not feel like you're ripping them off. So
okay. I love it.
God has a way of working these things out, because after I'd taken all these classes, I was supposed to come back to the Shenandoah Valley where I live. Mm-hmm. And one of the assistant commissioners at VDOT came up to me and she said, Kenny, we would love to have you come up in Nova. You did such a good job on this 4-month temporary assignment. Mm-hmm. We know you're getting ready to retire. Mm-hmm. And if you come up your last 3 years, it'll bump your salary and your pension's based on your salary. So I told her, y'all ain't got enough money in the world to get me to come to DC and work. And I was wrong. Because when my wife found out how much it's going to pay me, guess who packed my bags and sent me on up there?
Oh, you gone? Sorry,
I'm gone. You gone. So I'm staying up in Nova for 3 years, and I'm just staying up there during the week, going home on weekends, staying in hotels. You know, the ones where you look in the coupon books at McDonald's and they're like $39 a night, and,
yes.
and when you go to the bathroom, you don't turn on the lights because you don't want to see the roaches and the rats. So that's where I was staying. But so with doing that, what I wound up doing was I started hitting open mic on Monday night, Tyson's Corner, Wiseacres. Tuesday night, Topaz Hotel in DC. Wednesday night, Dr. Dreamo's Draft House over in Arlington. Thursday night, wherever I could find an open mic. So for the next 18 months, I did 150 plus open mics over 18 months. I was doing 3 or 4 a week. And so what I learned was, one, I was getting really good at my comedy. But the other thing I learned was I didn't want to do comedy clubs forever. That's hard work. I have
Yeah.
nothing but respect. I still do comedy clubs a couple times a year. I'm already got one booked for January, but I didn't want to do that every week. And what I did find out is churches pay better and they feed you better. All right.
Yes.
You go to a church and those church ladies with the hats on, when they go to cooking and they're going to have a big to do and they're going to have food and they're going to have comedy. Guess who? I didn't get this big old fat pot belly just all by myself. Okay. I had some help along the way. And so I found that churches, they pay you good. It's rare that you get heckled. You don't have to fight any drunks out in the parking lot. Well, maybe every once in a while, but not every single show.
Yes.
And, so that's how I got into comedy. Now, how I got the name Cornbread.
Yeah.
When I was taking the classes at the DC Improv, the guy that was teaching, I mentioned earlier, Matt Kazan, he told me, he said, "Hey, we're going to change your name." I said, "What?" He said, "We're going to change your name because your name's Kenny Robinson." He said, "There is a very famous African-Canadian comedian named Kenny Robinson."
Oh.
And I found out he was actually, at that time, he was starring on a series on Canadian TV that Billy Ray Cyrus was the star of. He played this con man called Jelly Bean.
Oh, man.
And so Kenny Robinson had the www.kennyrobinson.com website and everybody. And he said, if you want to do church comedy, you don't want people Googling Kenny Robinson because the jokes he tells ain't going to get you in no churches. But actually, Kenny Robinson and I are now friends on Facebook. We've never met in person, but we go back and forth on each other's Facebook page every week. And he's a great guy, and we've got to be good social media friends. So I had this introduction that said, he's from a little town called Big Stone Gap, Virginia. Okay. 5,000 people, only 6 last names. He's inbred, he's corn-fed, he's cornbread, all right?
No.
And so that's how we got to the name Cornbread, and it's really been a blessing because people will forget your real name.
Yeah.
I done forgot your name.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's not important. It's not important.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I forget my wife's name, but she wears a name tag. All right. So I'm okay with that. But, and my kids, I just call them number 1, number 2, and number 3 because I can't remember their names either.
I love it.
But cornbread is easy for people to remember. But now I've been called corn dog, I've been called corn pop, I've been called corn flake, and every other kind of corn. But eventually they get back around to cornbread. And I found that everybody likes cornbread.
Yes.
A few people that don't, we need to anoint them with oil and pray over them because there's something bad wrong with them. The devil's got a hold of their life, and they need to be released.
Yes.
So that's sort of how we got to into comedy. And so right now, you mentioned earlier about me being a consultant. I retired from VDOT after the 33 years. And for the last 12 years, I've been working as a construction consultant. Boy, that's a mouthful. I just washed my tongue and can't do a thing with it. So anyway, I became a construction consultant, and I've got to build bridges all over Virginia. And I've also been able to do some consulting work for FEMA. So I went to Florida after Hurricane Irma, spent 7 months down in Miami and Boca Raton. And that's a good gig. Then I did a year in Puerto Rico, and
wow,
I loved it. 3 months in the San Juan area, and then 9 months out in a rural part of the island on the west coast called Aguadilla. And loved my year in Puerto Rico, came back, did some, they were going to send me back to Puerto Rico, but then COVID hit. So I did COVID paperwork from home, but now I'm back at VDOT again as a consultant, and I manage all the bridge repairs for 11 counties. And we have 3 or 4 construction crews that are contractors, and then we have about 6 inspectors that I manage. And it's really fun to get to do that, and it gives me a lot of free time that I can still do comedy. And I do some training now for UVA, teaching people how to pass their exams for work zone safety, etc. So just God opens all kinds of doors for you. You just have to be dumb enough to walk through them. A lot of people are afraid to walk through the doors God's opening. But I've just learned that He'll go with you, whichever door you're walking through.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. And we know we're coming up against the time here, sir. But people, if you haven't picked up, I mean, you have so many lives, but you're also a minister of the gospel.
Right. When I was coming back from Puerto Rico after the year, I hadn't done any comedy for a year because I was down there. And so the last week I was there, I was praying about it every day. I had like a 30-minute commute each way from the hotel over to the office. And I was asking God, I said, what is it that you want me to do when I get back? Do I get back into the comedy now? And He said, yeah, you're going to do that, but you're going to do something more. And I said, okay, what's that look like? And you know how God speaks to you. You know, everybody thinks God speaks to you like, you know, George Burns or Morgan Freeman, you know, just pops up in the seat beside you when you're driving, and all of a sudden you're like scared. That ain't the way He talks to me. Now, He may talk to you that way, but that ain't the way He talks to me. But you know He's talking to you.
Yeah.
And He kept telling me, He said, you know, I want you to be a minister to all my children that don't go to church. And I said, what does that exactly look like? And He said, well, I said, do you want me to start a church? Like go out and rent a building or something and start like a storefront church or something? Or He said, no. He said, I got too many churches as it is. And I swear that's what He told me. He said, I got too many churches as it is. We don't need any more churches.
Yeah.
He said, if we could fill up the ones we got, we'd be doing fine. But He said, I don't need you to start another church. He said, I'm going to send people to you that are my children, but they've just got hurt. Yes. They've got burnt out. They've walked away from the church, but they're still my children. You remember the story of the prodigal son. The prodigal son was down the pig pen, but guess what? He wasn't lost. He was still the son. All right? There's still a lot of people that are God's children, don't go to church every Sunday, but they're still God's children. He said, that's the ones I want you to minister to. So I prayed about it for a year, talked to a lot of people that I really respect in the faith, and they all sort of affirmed what I was hearing. I think it's good. You know, the Bible says there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors.
Yes.
And so I figured out who I wanted to do my ordination through, and I had done a lot of shows over the years. I do a lot with Christian country music, and there's a group called the International Cowboy Church Alliance Network. ICANN, because I can do all things through Christ.
Come on.
All right.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
ICANN. And so I approached them about I was just going to get a minister's license. I wasn't looking to be ordained. I was just going to get the minister's license. So if somebody needed me to do a wedding or a funeral or something, that I'd have credentials. And so I approached them about it, and they interviewed me, and they prayed about it, and they came back to me and they said, we really feel like God's wanting us to ordain you more than just give you a minister's license. And so they prayed about it. I prayed about it. And so they put me through a series of exams. I had to take all these Bible exams, and to see where I was at, and if I needed to take additional Bible classes, etc., what areas I might be weak in. Anyway, long story short, God helped me through those, that I passed all my minister credential exams. And so I've been ordained a little over 2 years, and God does. God sends people. I get emails from people, and they'll say, I was reading in the book of Revelation, and I don't understand chapter 7. And God will give me a word for them, and I'll pray about it, and I'll read on it, and I'll respond back, or God just puts people in your ways. You know,
man.
The way that I think about it, if you remember in the book of Acts, God sent Philip to the Ethiopian eunuch who was reading the Bible and didn't really understand a passage. Yeah. And God sent Philip, one man to one person, to minister to him, because God is not just interested in the church. The church is important. I'm not counting the church at all, but God is interested in the individual. And so that's how God is using me right now as a minister, one-on-one with people, meeting them where they're at. Yeah. And God puts me in their path, and I'm very fortunate that that's the ministry He chose for me, because I love people.
You know what? We love you too, and like I said, I mean, I'm so glad, Cornbread. We're gonna have to bring you on back because I know there's so many other stories and so many other things I want to talk to you about and stuff. But before we go, how do if people want to bring you to their church? People,
Sure.
We understand. You know, we got some people who watch it who go to nightclubs and stuff. However, if you want to bring them in, how do they get in contact with it? Say, hey,
All right.
need some of this.
If they'll go to my website, it's www.cornbreadthecomic.com. And I'll even go to their comedy club, but I do churches and corporate events and charities, and I do a couple. Like I say, I'm going to be up in Pennsylvania at the Shippensburg Comedy Club first Friday night in January. So God does still open doors. Anyway, it'll be on the website. I'm getting ready to add all my 2023 dates to the website. So God does open doors. And I was just joking about not knowing your name, Todd.
I know. Look, Cornbread. I'm so happy to have you on here, and folks get a chance to have a number one. I call it comedy without cringing, because you get those other comics, and we're not talking down or anything like that. They do what they do, but if you don't worry about cringing, about having a good time and laughing and just having a good time without worrying about your kids. Hold your ears. Please get my man right here. Not only is he funny, but he's anointed. God has blessed him, and I love him dearly. We're gonna bring him back on, folks. So next time we'll see you on Mom and Dad Talks.